OpenAI's Dev Day. NVIDIA releasing a new chip, and AMD are about to release some new chips as well.
The future of computing will be much more around assistance.
This week in AI, I'm really excited. One, because I've got a new camera. I don't know if guys can notice it out there. Maybe my hair's looking a bit better, or even sounding better. So hopefully you notice a difference. But look, Draw, welcome. There's been a lot going on in AI this week. Why don't we just kick off?
Let's go. So earlier this week, Bill Gates, he's doing Gates Notes these days, and he's writing about something we talked a few months ago about the change of the computing architecture of the world. It's a big, big thing. Older people remember Clippy. Clippy used to be an assistant that installs itself with Microsoft Word. You open up Word and it says, "What would you like to write today?" And it just didn't work. It was pathetic. I became like a standing joke with Microsoft. But what Bill is writing about is about how Clippy was an early stage prototype of something called intelligent agent. It reminded me when I studied about agent 20 years ago, and it was also, we talked about like Clippy being a pathetic example. And then the question was like, what kind of architecture does the computing needs in order to bring them to life? So Bill is writing about how the future of computing will be much more around assistants, much more around agents. This is really big deal, because if you think about the architecture of the entire computing industry, right? Almost our society, everything is based on client-server architecture. Okay, so your client is your computer, the server is the provider. And if you think about how much economic value is built into this client-server architecture, there's going to be a new computing interface that sits between me and those servers, and it's like an intelligent agent that's kind of is empowered enough for me to tell it, "Hey, book me that trip," and it has all the information about booking that trip. Then suddenly you can see a massive shift of value between like the internet advertising model to a different model, which we don't know yet. Humans are not going to surf the web for 3 hours booking their flight, for example, consuming 100 ads, deriving a lot of economic activity on the back of that. They will just tell the agent to do it, which is a computer system that will just do it for them. You can just start seeing how this is a fundamentally different type of architecture and environment. And the question is like, okay, what sort of businesses are going to be supported by that future? So Bill Gates coming up with that letter, kind of confirming what we've been talking about a few months ago, which is always feels nice. And I think that's a big deal, and that's news for this week. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think, hats off to you. You were talking about that a while ago, and I think we're into this starting to have a new dimension on what applications look like, and I think that's what you're saying. And I think we're in this next phase as well, which is rather than clicking and going through levels of a hierarchy, we're going to ask questions, and it probably leads in well to something else that happened, this week, which was pretty exciting, which was OpenAI's Dev Day. And, they talked a lot about agents within there and GPTs. And this leads on pretty well to what OpenAI, released on their Dev Day. So, they're talking about having 2 million developers, 90% of Fortune 500 companies are using them, and they have 100 million active users. And so they're doing well. I mean, some people have said that it's dropping off, but, they added a ton of really interesting things. I've been watching lots of videos this week around people playing around with these GPTs and agents, as you might call them, around how they've it's early days, but we're seeing there's some really good signs of how that could work, and it'll be interesting to see how that sort of plays out. So yeah, I mean, what they talked about was really having GPT-4 Turbo. It's trained up to date now, so we're getting at least up to April 23, which is a lot better than 2021, which is where ChatGPT was working. 128K tokens. So that means the context, people are going to be able to work with these tools to remember a lot more. Before it's sort of, you'd only be able to have context for a certain amount. And look, the other key part of what they're talking about is that it's cheaper. And so, look, I think there's a whole range of other things within there, multimodal. So now we're not able to just deal with text. We're talking about DALL-E, generating images, using vision. I think that's a huge thing as well. And so I think all these things in terms of speeding up, as well as text to speech, is going to be really interesting. And we're seeing the same things, with some of the other players. But yeah, I think the big thing was GPTs and assistant APIs. And, we're going to allow people to use these tools to develop their own little assistants. And I don't know what your sort of view is on that. And then, the big thing that they're talking about releasing is a marketplace. So we're kind of going to have this little app store like thing. So I think it is going to kill off some people that are doing some things now. But how do you sort of see that, Draw?
I think it's super exciting. It's a little bit like how Apple ships iPhone in 2007. Everybody's like, "We it's really exciting," and then a year or two later, they finally ship an SDK, and other people can build apps. And that really is the thing that accelerated iPhone to become the dominant computing platform, one of the most dominant computing platforms, or at least mobile is. And I think that we're seeing something in front of our eyes that is very similar. Now, whether or not the App Store model and marketplace makes sense, but what I think a lot when I hear all these things, I think about Aussie startups and opportunities. And I think like how this will change the type of problems and type of solutions that people are working on now that are, interesting and could be, billion-dollar businesses. I'm not talking about like, billion-dollar businesses like, Canva or whatever. They can just buy innovation. I'm talking about like super early stage or like less, middle early stage, so to speak, scale ups. You need to pay a lot of attention to what's going on because it's moving and it's moving fast. And things that made sense a year ago, you said like that's an interesting investable business proposition. They can be like old news now that OpenAI is emerging as the next computing platform player. Again, there's no single rule here, but there's a lot of interesting like a lot of new knowledge that you should apply in a case by case basis for startups that we are seeing, as well as if again encourage the founders and investors to think deeply about where this is really going.
Really, some of the functionality that you can get out of the box is going to make it difficult for some businesses. But that's where we are. This is a lot of experimentation and changing a landscape, and so we do, like to your point, really have to think ahead. I think the other thing interesting with the sort of GPTs is also using other products like Zapier. And, Zapier have all these automations and integrations. And so, we're going to have a very different interface that you'll be able to just ask something to be done and it'll go off and do all these other things. And this is going to be open to non-technical people. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of out there in the internet is people who are just really experimenting. And look, I would say it's beta or alpha based on, how slow some of these things are and people being restricted. But let's project forward, 6, 12 months. One of the other things that's just sort of come out as well is about NVIDIA releasing a new chip, and, AMD are about to release some new chips as well. And so, there was an article around that, GH200, it's meant to have, 3 times as much memory and capacity of the H100, which is what the standard is right now. And so, yeah, how do you sort of view that? Do you view that as the next, it's just logically that's going to continue to happen?
I really agree that over time, these things are going to get faster and better. And you have to have a little bit of patience and belief, so to speak, and trust. Because I remember the criticism the web got over many years that it's too clunky and desktop applications are better and like web applications would never catch up. And then, something like Canva came along, which is like it started like Photoshop in the browser and it was like no one believed that's possible. And then look, here it is, it's possible. And now basically there's really no limit to what you can do in the browser, including recording this video right here, recording this show. And the same with, with mobile apps. I remember the first mobile apps, everybody's like, oh, that's never going to be as good as, the browser, the big real estate, fast and so forth. And you know what? It's better now. So I think once it's a common pattern where, there's cellular innovation and there's almost the invention, the physics. And then it's engineering from there. It's meaning like you have to optimize, and it's getting better every time. So you can apply what I just said to space travel. It's physically became realistically possible, and then it was all engineered from there on. So same thing is going to happen to this new capability, the AI. It's going to get faster. It's going to get easier. A whole generation of people are going to get used to using that modality. It's also going to disappear away from text into something that's more like maybe language, maybe speech. And maybe a combination. So this is an open area for innovation, and we see rapid innovation in that space. So I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, excellent. And I was just thinking back, you did say Bill, like Bill, and I remember you talking about in your early days of your previous business that you're having a meeting with Bill Gates, and you came into the room and
everybody was very suited and very serious, and I was the only one who's like, called him by his first name, shook his hand. We didn't take selfie. Yeah, me and Bill, we are on a first name basis, of course.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, as it should be.
Just kidding. Yes.
Look, one of the other things that came out of the OpenAI Dev Day is also around this partnership of data. So wanting to have these sort of private data sets become public and train on them, and encouraging this partnership model. What do you think about that? I'm not sure if you guys can hear my dog barking, but Apollo agrees.
I think it's a matter of time. It's a matter of when, not if. So I think it's happening. I don't know what to make of it other than like it's a logical progression of the direction we're heading towards. So I don't think it's either bad or good. It's just the natural next steps.
Yeah, well, look, I
How's
think
that? Is that a
there's a
good
little
take?
I think there's a little bit of sneakiness in there. I think that this is a data play. Everyone wants to have more data within their models, and I think this is I guess a slightly sneaky way of being able to do that.
It's fair play. The fact that it's sneaky doesn't make it wrong. Like, yes, it's a wise business decision that also gives them defensibility and moat and advantage, but also makes it creates value. That's what we want businesses to do.
No, 100%. And I think the thing here is to improve the performance. Now, whether they can use all of that data directly or not, I'm sure that there's some things in there. I haven't sort of looked into that. And I think they've got a lot going on, which is really good to see how they're developing a whole ecosystem around all of the aspects of what they're doing. And, I'm sure we're going to sort of see this play out with other players as well. All right. So look, I don't think we're going to have time today, but CB Insights produced this generative AI Bible. I'd love to talk about that next week around, what's in there and how they've sort of seen the progression in history. It's quite an interesting read around, what the funding's been like. And I think we should explore some of this next week. But, we've got to run this week, short and sweet, this week in AI. But let's catch up next week. It's been great talking to you today, Dror.
Likewise. Let's catch up next week.
Yeah, I'll catch up with you then. It's been a great week.